There are three types of question in that passage. 1. Information matching. Point 2. Summary completion. 3. Matching list or feature. However, at first, we will solve summary completion, and then matching list. Finally, we will solve information matching.
32. Sustainability. Keywords. Committee advice. Explanation. The answer can be found in lines 3 to 5 of paragraph. Number C. International groups such as the Interagency Space Debris Coordination Committee have developed guidelines on space. Sustainability. Note, here, when we say the committee has developed guidelines, it means that the committee has created a set of recommendations. These recommendations are like suggestions or ideas that the committee is offering.
Fuel. Keywords. The satellites are no longer active. Explanation. The answer can be found in lines 5 to 6 of paragraph number C. Those include inactivating satellites at the end of their useful life by venting pressurized materials or leftover fuel that might. Note, international groups, like the Interagency Space Debris Coordination Committee, have created guidelines to promote the sustainability of outer space.
These guidelines recommend specific actions, such as deactivating satellites when they are no longer useful. This deactivation process may involve releasing pressurized materials or any remaining fuel that could otherwise cause explosions or hazards in space.
Inactive satellite means satellites are no longer active.
3.4. Explosion. Keywords. It is in the same line of number 33 question. Explanation. The answer can be found in lines 5 to 6 of paragraph number C. Those include inactivating satellites at the end of their useful life by venting pressurized materials or leftover fuel that might lead to explosions. Note, international groups, like the Interagency Space Debris Coordination Committee, have created guidelines to promote the sustainability of outer space. These guidelines recommend specific actions, such as deactivating satellites when they are no longer useful. This deactivation process may involve releasing pressurized materials or any remaining fuel that could otherwise cause explosions or hazards in space.
35. Bankrupt. Keywords. Consolation. Holger Krag. Explanation.
The answer can be found in lines 11 to 15 of paragraph number C.
Operators of the planned large constellations of satellites say they will be responsible stewards in their enterprises in space. But Krag worries that problems could increase despite their best intentions. What happens to those that fail or go bankrupt? He asks. They are probably not going to spend money to remove their satellites from space.
Note, in easy language, the people who are planning to launch a bunch of satellites say they will be responsible and take care of space. They promise to do a good job in space, but a person named Holger Krag is worried. He's asking, what if these satellite companies fail or run out of money? Will they clean up their satellites from space? He's concerned that they might not, which could lead to more stuff floating around in space. This could be a problem for space and our satellites. So, it's a question about what happens if these satellite companies don't keep their promises.
36C. Keywords. Exact location. Space junk. Possible danger. Explanation. The answer can be found in lines 6 to 8 of paragraph number D. But you should read whole para to better understand the answer. If you knew precisely where everything was, you would almost never have a problem, says Marlowe Sorge, a space debris specialist at the Aerospace Corporation in El Segundo, California. Double quotes. Note: knowing the exact location of space junk would help prevent any possible danger. Means, by knowing precisely where everything is in space, we can avoid many unnecessary movements satellites make to avoid potential crashes. It's like having a super accurate map for space, so we almost never are.
D. Keywords. Available for everyone. Preserve for future. Explanation. The answer can be found in lines 12 to 13 of paragraph no. F. Jar describes himself as a space environmentalist. I'll want to make space a place that is safe to operate, that is free and useful for generations to come. Note: space should be available to everyone and should be preserved for future. Means Moriba just sees himself as a space environmentalist. He wants to ensure that space becomes a safe and accessible place for people to use, and he wants it to remain that way for many generations in the future. In other words, he's dedicated to protecting and preserving the space environment for the benefit of all.
B. Keywords, satellite. Explanation. The answer can be found in lines 7 to 9 of paragraph no. C. The intergovernmental groups also advise lowering satellites deep enough into the atmosphere that they will burn up or disintegrate within 25 years. But so far, only about half of all missions have abided by this 25-year goal, says Holger Krag, head of the European Space Agency's Space Debris Office in Darmstadt, Germany. Note: a recommendation regarding satellites is widely ignored. Means the intergovernmental groups also recommend bringing satellites down into the Earth's atmosphere deep enough so that they will burn up or break apart within 25 years. However, Holger Krag, who is in charge of the European Space Agency's Office for Space Debris in Germany, points out that only about half of all space missions have followed this 25-year guideline so far. This means that many satellites are still staying in orbit longer than they should. Potent.
D. Keywords. Conflicting information. Location of satellite. Explanation. The answer can be found in lines 2 to 7 of paragraph no. E. Now remain cool and read those lines. Think about the busy day at an airport, says Moriba Jah, an astrodynamicist at the University of Texas at Austin. Planes line up in the sky, landing and taking off close to one another in a carefully choreographed routine. Air traffic controllers know the location of the planes down to 1 meter in accuracy. The same can't said for space debris. Not all objects in orbit are known, and even those included in databases are not consistently.
Note: there is some conflicting information about where some satellites are in space. Means Moriba Jah, an expert in the science of space orbits, compares a busy day at an airport to what's happening in space. At an airport, planes are constantly coming and going, and air traffic controllers know exactly where each plane is, with high precision, down to just 1 meter. However, in space, it's a different story. Not all the objects orbiting Earth are tracked, and even the ones that are listed in databases don't always have accurate or consistent information about their positions. So, it's much harder to keep track of everything in space compared to planes at an airport.
B. Keywords: risk, undue, damage. Explanation: the answer can be found in lines 11 to 15 of paragraph No. C. Operators of the planned large constellations of satellites say they will be responsible stewards in their enterprises in space. But Cragg worries that problems could increase despite their best intentions. What happens to those that fail or go bankrupt? He asks. They are probably not going to spend money to remove their satellites from space. Note: there is a risk we will not be able to undo the damage that occurs in space means. There's a concern that once damage is done in space, we may not be able to fix it. The people planning to launch lots of satellites promise to take good care of space. However, Holger Cragg is worried that, even with their best intentions, problems could get worse. He's asking, what happens if these satellite companies fail or run out of money? Will they be willing to spend the money to clean out their satellites from space? His concern is that they might not, which could lead to more stuff floating around in space. So, it's a question about what happens if these satellite companies don't keep their promises and the risks that come with it.
C. Keywords: cooperation, minimize risk. Explanation: the answer can be found in lines 2 to 3 of paragraph No. C. That means companies, governments, and other players in space are in new ways to avoid a shared threat. Note: a reference to the cooperation that takes place to try and minimize risk means. This reference highlights the cooperation among companies, governments, and other stakeholders in space to minimize risks. They are coming together in new ways to address a common threat. In other words, they are working together to reduce the risks in space and are finding innovative ways to do so. This collaborative effort is driven by the recognition that space activities affect everyone and that shared solutions are needed to make space safer for all. F. Keywords: a person's aim. Explanation: the answer can be found in lines 12 to 13 of paragraph No. F. Joe describes himself as a space environmentalist. I want to make space a place that is safe to operate, that is free and useful for generations to come. Note: an explanation of a person's aim means. In this statement, when Joe describes himself as a space environmentalist, he is explaining his personal mission or goal. He aims to make space a safe and accessible environment for various space activities. His vision is to ensure that space remains a place where can operate their satellites and spacecraft without unnecessary risks or hazards. He also wants space to be available and valuable for future generations, emphasizing the importance of preserving space for the long-term benefit of humanity. In simple terms, his aim is to protect and maintain the well-being of space as a valuable resource for all. Keywords: collision in space. Explanation. The answer can be found in lines 7 to 10 of paragraph No. 10 years ago, a U.S. commercial Iridium satellite smashed into an inactive Russian communications satellite called Cosmos 2251, creating thousands of new of space shrapnel that now threaten other satellites in low Earth orbit. The zone stretching up to 2,000 kilometers in altitude. Note, a description of a major collision that occurred in space means 10 years ago, a significant collision occurred in space when a commercial Iridium satellite from the United States collided with an inactive Russian communications satellite known as Cosmos 2251. This collision resulted in the creation of thousands of new pieces of space debris, often referred to as space shrapnel. These fragments now pose a threat to other operational satellites that orbit in low Earth orbit, which is the region of space extending up to about 2,000 kilometers in altitude. This event highlights the risks associated with space debris and the potential consequences for other objects in space. 30. E. Keywords, tracking object, efficiency. Explanation. The answer can be found of paragraph No. E. The field is called space traffic management because it's similar to managing traffic on the roads or in the air. Think about a busy day at an airport, says Mauriba Jan, an astrodynamicist at the University of Texas at Austin. Planes line up in the sky, landing and taking off close to one another in a carefully choreographed routine. Air traffic controllers know the location of the planes down to 1 meter in accuracy. The same can't be said for space debris. Not all objects in orbit are known, and even those included in databases are not consistently. Note, a comparison between tracking objects in space and the efficiency of a transportation system means space traffic management is like managing traffic on roads or in the air. Just like air traffic controllers know where planes are with great accuracy, we need to keep track of objects in space. However, unlike planes, not all objects in space are known, and even those in databases often lack consistent information. This makes space traffic management more challenging. Airplane has been compared with spaceship.
Leave a comment. Your comment inspired me to make video.